Good evening, everyone. This is Mitchell back here on my YouTube channel. It's good to see you guys again after a month. It's finally time to do college football picks. It feels like it's been 5 years since the college season has happened. The COVID-19 pandemic took Big Ten football out of the occasion until November of 2020, and there were no fans for the whole entire season. There were some Northwestern, some Ohio State fans at the Big Ten championship game, some Ohio State fans at the national game, but the regular season, the fact that they had no fans at all, they are back this year and we are all ready to go. And tonight there's actually a couple games too, and it really felt good watching the Minnesota-Ohio State game. I like the way Minnesota competes, even though they didn't win. They really showed that they could compete, and maybe this year they could pull out like a couple big wins against like Wisconsin or Iowa or any of them. Yeah, and Tanner Morgan, I think Tanner Morgan will have a lot of room to grow throughout the season. I mean, just their turnovers, the O-line got kind of weak at the end. But anyways, yeah, we'll move on to tonight's games. The first one at 5 o'clock tonight is North Carolina and Virginia Tech. Cade 14 is gone, but Mac Brown's squad, I think, is going to continue to do good. I mean, they're going to make a good bowl game this year, and I think North Carolina is going to start 1-0. Then we have Duke and Charlotte. I'm going to take Duke there, and Duke's doing much better in football than they have been in years. 2 years ago, they started to do a lot better for football. Next, we have Old Dominion at Wake Forest. Old Dominion, I think, is very underrated. They've been close to some bowl matchups, and I think Wake Forest can maybe struggle with it, but I think Wake Forest will win by a field goal here. We got a couple smaller schools playing. St. Francis, Pennsylvania versus Eastern Michigan. I'm going to take Eastern Michigan. Kansas versus South Dakota. Kansas beat Central Michigan a couple of years ago. I remember. I haven't watched much of them since then. I think Kansas will beat South Dakota here. 8 o'clock Central Time. Northern Colorado versus Colorado. The in-state game. Colorado, I think, will take this one easily because Northern Colorado is by far a smaller school, and I think they're gonna have definitely enough to prevail that one. I didn't even know this, but Michigan State plays at 8 o'clock tonight. There's another Big Ten matchup. I love all these Big Ten matchups that are coming. Michigan State, I think, is going to be very down this year, while Pat Fitzgerald's squad, who are the reigning runner-up Big Ten champions, they're out of the Big Ten West. They're home against Michigan State, and I think they're gonna prevail and get this one. I think they're gonna win by a touchdown. San Diego State and Colorado State. I'll take San Diego State because they're getting better lately, like the last few years. Next, we have Army and Georgia State. I'll definitely take Army because I think Army is due for a great year. They haven't made a bowl game in quite a while, and Navy has made quite a bit. But I think Army not easily, but I think they could make a bowl game. Holy Cross versus UConn. I'll take UConn. Stanford versus Kansas State. I'll take Stanford because David Shaw's squad, I think they're going to be back this year. They weren't in a bowl game last year, so I think they're going to be back this year to that type of football again. And then I've never heard of them, but Fordham versus Nebraska, a Mickey Mouse school, Fordham. Nebraska will pull this one out. Monroe versus Kentucky. Yeah, Scott Frost's squad for Nebraska. They were third in the Big Ten West last year. They performed very well. They beat Michigan State a couple of years ago when they're very much growing. I think they're gonna I think they're gonna do a really good job against Fordham. Next, we have LA Monroe versus Kentucky, and Kentucky's getting a lot better for football lately. I'm gonna have them win by 20 against LA Monroe, even though they can maybe stick with them. They're not gonna have enough to beat Kentucky. Tomorrow, we have one of the biggest matchups of the entire day. The Penn State Nittany Lions, number 19th in the nation, will meet up Wisconsin, number 12, at Camp Randall. It's going to be a great game. I cannot wait to watch it. It's going to be a good way to start off Saturday's slate. I think Wisconsin will get it, but they'll only win by a field goal. I think Penn State's going to really hang with them. James Franklin's really going to keep their squad going this year, and I think they could really make up from last year being a major disappointment for them. Wisconsin could too, but I think Penn State could stay in it, but Wisconsin win by a field goal. And yeah, like I said, he's gonna keep his players at it, and that's not gonna be a blow up by any means. Even though Camp Randall's a tough environment to play, I think the Badgers will only win by 3 there. And then the next college video, I'll do it by the spread, but this is kind of a preview of that. Just wanted to do a video of this. Next, we have Tulane and Oklahoma, which is a non-conference matchup. I'll take Spencer Rattler in Oklahoma to go 1-0. I think he's a very overrated quarterback so far. I don't know how he's number one pick in the 2022 NFL draft. So Lincoln Riley's squad's going to be hard to figure out. Excuse me for saying Lincoln Riley at Nebraska. He's a former Nebraska coach, so excuse me on that one earlier. Next, we have my Michigan Wolverines playing Western Michigan at the Big House. I'm gonna take Michigan there, but I think they'll win by 2 scores because I think they're gonna have to do a lot to make the top 25. But Cade McNamara is named our starter as of this Monday. It's very exciting. I think Joe Milton was definitely trashed last year, and I think it was right that he's not with Michigan. He transferred to Tennessee, and he could have an opportunity there. But I'm glad that he's gone. He's gone from Michigan for a new opportunity. And McNamara played a really good game when they beat Rutgers in 3 overtimes last year, and that was a good game to watch, even without a bowl game. That was a game that he really put a performance on. And Hassan Haskins is out. We have other running backs that could take over his spot. So Michigan by 14 there. Excuse me. We have Colgate and Boston College. I'll definitely take Boston College here. We have Temple versus Rutgers. Rutgers is getting a lot better, so I think they're going to win by a touchdown over Temple. Oregon versus Fresno State. It's a Pac-12 versus Mountain West matchup, so it's both West Coast teams. I think Oregon's going to have too much power to pull out to lose to Fresno State here. We have Lafayette versus Air Force. I'll take Air Force. We have Rice versus Arkansas. I'll definitely take Arkansas here. Even though Arkansas is kind of inconsistent, they will definitely beat Rice by at least 2 touchdowns. Indiana and Iowa, another Big Ten Conference game. Man, Fran McCaffrey's squad, I think, will pull it out at home. They'll go 1-0 in this one. Miami, Ohio versus Cincinnati. I'll go with Cincinnati because they're more of a Power 5 school. West Virginia versus Maryland. I'll go with Maryland, even though this will be a very, very good non-conference matchup in Big Ten versus Big 12. I think West Virginia will hang in there, though, but Maryland's too tough at home. I think they're going to beat them there. Next, we have Nick Saban's Alabama Crimson Tide. They are in the top 5 this year, but I think they're kind of down. They could barely get in the college football playoff, maybe with 1 loss to Georgia, but I think they're going to beat Miami. They're going to give it at least a touchdown game until the 4th quarter, where I think they'll kind of slip away. But Alabama will get this one by 2 touchdowns, but it'll be a 7-point game, I think, till the end of the 3rd, as mentioned. We have Marshall versus Navy. As I said, Navy has been legitimately good in the regular season lately, so I'm going to go with them to beat Marshall in a non-conference matchup. We got Massachusetts and the Pittsburgh Panthers. Going to go with Pittsburgh. Tomorrow, Central Michigan, which is where both my parents graduated, they're playing in Missouri. I wish Central would pull it out because they pulled it out a couple of years ago. And they pulled out a miraculous upset on the road, but Cooper Rush had a Hail Mary to beat Oklahoma State, which is legitimate, but I don't see it being done against Missouri, so Missouri by 10 here. Louisiana Monroe versus Mississippi State. I'll take Mississippi State with them being the SEC, and Louisiana Tech won't have enough against them. Northern Iowa versus Iowa State. I will take Iowa State. Montana State versus Wyoming. I'll take Wyoming by 2 touchdowns. Louisiana versus Texas. Louisiana Raging Cajuns. They will stay with it because Texas isn't as good this year, and I think they're kind of on. I think they're kind of on a curse right now in college. I think they'll only be field goal, and the Raging Cajuns have had good bowl experience. It's Louisiana Lafayette, so they've had good enough bowl experience where they could really stay with Texas. I think they will till Texas wins by a really big field goal, and they will go into 2 overtimes. So that's a very bold one that Texas will win really close, but I think they will. That's a very good non-conference game that has a lot of potential because of Texas's curse the last few years in college football. Next, we have San Jose State versus USC. Give me USC. Gardner-Webb versus Georgia Southern. Georgia Southern will get this one. Campbell versus Liberty. I'll definitely take Liberty. Norfolk State versus Toledo. I will take Toledo out of the MAC to win this one. Central Arkansas versus Arkansas State. I will take Arkansas State at home. Albany Christian University. I didn't know they had a football team. There, Albany Christian is playing SMU. I will take SMU there. I think it'll be a big blowout. I never even heard of Albany Christian playing football ever before. Baylor versus Texas State. I will take Baylor, and that's very interesting that they're playing in Texas State. But I suppose Baylor's in the state of Texas. They're in Waco, and I think they're. I guess Texas State probably wanted to play a Power 5 Big 12 school. Baylor's kind of. Big 12 is very weak, but Texas State could stay in it. But I think Baylor will win. I think Baylor will prevail pretty handily in this one. But Texas State, good luck to them because their home fans will really see a big game against a big opponent there. Got Texas Tech versus Houston next. I'll take Houston with them being at home. Eastern Illinois versus South Carolina. I'll definitely take South Carolina. Oregon State versus Purdue. I'll take Purdue. Monmouth versus Middle Tennessee. I will take Middle Tennessee there because Monmouth I don't hear very often in college football throughout most weeks. Nicholls State versus Memphis. I'll take Memphis. Missouri State versus Oklahoma State. I will take Oklahoma State. Syracuse versus Ohio. I think Ohio will stick with them, but Syracuse will end up winning it. But that's a very good ACC versus MAC matchup. So I think there's going to be a lot of small schools that are hosting big Power 5 schools, which that's a pretty big deal to watch that. So those are good games to keep an eye on for sure. Very underrated matchup. Southern U versus Troy. I'll take Troy. Akron versus Auburn. I will take Auburn, but Akron really do stick with Power 5 schools. Look at them only losing to Michigan by only a touchdown in 2013. I was sick to my stomach that Brady Holt second to last year that they could have lost that game to Akron, but they still did it. But Akron will really stick with teams, and that was week 2 of that 2013 season, and they'll stick with Auburn. And Auburn hasn't been as good in recent memory. Gus Malzahn also left this last year because it wasn't as consistent of a season as he thought. So there's also that too where he's gone. So Akron will stick with him, but Auburn will get it done. NWST versus North Texas. I will take North Texas. Excuse me. William and Mary versus Virginia. I'll take the Cavaliers to go 1-0. UTSA versus Illinois. I'll go with Illinois here in a very rare non-conference matchup. Florida Atlantic and in-state game versus Florida. I'll go with the Gators here to get that one done. Dan Mullins' squad will be back in that one. Next, we have a really big game. We have number 2 Georgia versus number 5 Clemson. This could be legitimately a national championship preview. If whoever loses this game still has a chance to make the national championship, if the loser goes with only one loss after this one, because whoever loses this game, it is a good loss if they just win out, and that's how college works. It's a neutral site game, so I think Georgia could have enough potential when Clemson doesn't have Trevor Lawrence anymore. They don't think this year that their new quarterback will be as good as Trevor Lawrence. He's definitely not as tall. He's probably only my size, 5'8". I don't think he has enough potential like Trevor Lawrence. And Georgia's very stacked this year. It's one of the best Georgia teams they've ever had. They were ranked higher against Alabama when they lost the national championship game in 2018. But I think they will get it done for the first time in many, many years, and Georgia will win this one. And I think I have them as an early national championship winner for how good they are and what they could really show in their conference and in football and college in general. And Georgia will definitely win by a touchdown. I think Clemson will be down after a while. They struggled against Ohio State in their bowl game last year, and I think it's going to be enough to say where Georgia will get this one. And I'm hoping Georgia gets it done. They will be a new team to do well in the college field, so I'm definitely hoping Georgia will get it done, and I think they will. Next, Northern Illinois versus Georgia Tech. I'll go with Georgia Tech in this very interesting MAC versus ACC matchup yet again. Kent State versus Texas A&M. I'll go with Texas A&M by 3 touchdowns. Montana versus Washington. I'll go with Washington. Duquesne versus TCU. I'll go with TCU there. Southern Miss versus Southern Alabama. I'll go with Southern Alabama. I'll just go with the Power 5 games. So just so I save time for doing this. LSU versus UCLA. It's a very big matchup. UCLA is number 18, while Ed Orgeron and LSU they come in unranked. This is very good, but I think LSU is going to get a slight upset. While they're going to get a slight upset, pulling out the victory at the Rose Bowl Stadium. I think they're due for a legitimate win after definitely a struggle last season. Before that, the season was good, but last season for LSU was a struggle. Next, BYU and Arizona for the other Power 5 at 9:30 Central Time. I'll take Arizona, but I think that'll be a very good matchup to watch. A Pac-12 versus Mountain West yet again. Utah State versus Washington State. That's a Mountain West game. I'll take Utah State because I think they're more consistent than Washington State. However, Washington State made the Pac-12 They made the Pac-12 championship a few years ago, so it's Pac-12 versus Mountain West. Excuse me on that one. Utah State, I think, has more consistency than them. Notre Dame and Florida State. This is the other very good game. Notre Dame's barely in the top 25, while Florida State's in the top 15. I don't think Notre Dame. I hope they don't win it, and I think Florida State's gonna get it done, even though I think they're gonna struggle this year. Florida State will get it. Will go 1-0, and they'll pull out a very big victory against Notre Dame. Louisville and Ole Miss is the last game of a wonderful and huge weekend in college football. Louisville's been without Teddy Bridgewater the last few years, and while Ole Miss is improving a lot, I think Ole Miss will get this. I think Ole Miss will win this one. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Just give me a like, subscribe, and comment if you would like to. I would really appreciate it, and comment on the games you're looking forward to and your predictions. I would love to see them, and we'll see you next week for more college predictions. And also, the NFL Week 1 does begin next weekend. For the first time in a very long time, my Packers will be playing again since the NFC Championship. So we will see you for two other videos next week, and have a safe and happy Labor Day weekend. Bye.